Hi, I'm Marianne Smith, and we're here with my book group to talk about the book Making Up with Mom. And this is Julie Halpert, the author of the book.
And thanks everybody for coming. This book group has been around for about 13 years, and they've heard about this book for a long time. So I'm anxious to hear what you have to say, and we can just start talking about the book.
I'm really enjoying it, Julie. I think it's a great, valuable book. I'm sure discussions between mothers and daughters, there's been a lot of really good ones as a result of it. Are there any of your, has anything come about as a result of writing the book that you didn't think about necessarily when you wrote it?
Well, I think what's interesting about it, I'm curious what you all think, is that we sort of communicate instinctively without sort of thinking about what we say before we say it. And it could be with our mothers or our children or people we deal with on a daily basis, but we are I think we sort of take our mothers for granted sometimes, and we'll sort of snap at them or talk about them in a defensive way. And I think it's sort of, if you have the chance to sort of reflect on what your messages are before you say them, I think that the dialogue can be a lot more harmonious instead of acrimonious. So for me, that's what was the advice part was interesting. But I also thought the stories were interesting. I don't know what all of you thought. So.
Oh, I love the stories, the anecdotal, just reading them, whoa. Ooh, trouble.
Julie, what I really appreciated is the balance, how you are able to show the perspective from both sides so clearly. And it really gave me pause to think about a lot of things in my own life and what I see with my peer group. But it was just so balanced, and I love that about the book.
And it's funny you say that because we really tried not to make this a mother-bashing book or a daughter-bashing book. We really focused on, there's two sides to every story. And so many times you hear women grousing about their mothers, and sometimes the mothers have a legitimate point and vice versa. So we tried to pick examples where you might sympathize with one person in one scenario, the mother, but in another you might sort of see the daughter's point of view. So I'm glad to hear you say that because it was hard to know how that was going to come across.
I think what I got out of the book was I really appreciate my mom more. I've had some issues just because she doesn't like to she's not an active person. But it made me realize that she's never, ever told me to do this or that. She supports whatever choices that I make. And she's very accepting of what I do and accepting of other people. And so I just reading this, I'm like, man, my mom is special. And I have to appreciate her for who she is, even though I'm just a totally different type of person than she is,
That's interesting.
So that's what I found, that as I was reading this and trying to think about my relationship with my mom, I started really thinking about the kind of mother that I'm being to an 11-year-old daughter and where I want to see that go over the next few years. So I thought it was really helpful to be thinking ahead about positive feedback, and how to do the I sentences, and focus on your feelings and not the criticisms, and not to set an example of criticizing other people in front of your children.
Well, of course, one of the biggest questions I get is, okay, so how are you going to fall into these traps with your daughter? And I am horribly guilty of the hair thing and telling her what she should be wearing. And then I stop myself now and I'll say, okay, is this a battle you want to be fighting?
Right.
And, the one thing, and she has tested me a lot, and I always find myself now saying, okay, let her do what she wants to do as long as she's safe and, she's responsible. If this is something she really wants, like whatever her career choice is, I think I will be on board with it. It sort of forces you to sort of just take a deep breath and step back sometimes in a way that you didn't really before, at least for me personally. That was another big impact this had on me. Well, I'm just curious of whatever your choices were to work or stay home. One thing we found is what I think was most interesting is we expected that mothers who stayed home would want their daughters to stay home too. They want them to sort of validate the choices they made. And there were many women whose daughters decided to stay home, and they were upset with them for that. They felt like they were taking for granted all the choices that the women's movement gave them, that they didn't want to have them to depend on a man the way the mother depended on a man. And that was really surprising to me. They really wanted them to do more professionally. I'm just wondering if any of you, your parents, whether you stayed home or worked, if your mothers tried to, questioned you about that choice or made you feel.
When my daughter was and she's my oldest, my mom sent me an article, and this was a true kindness. I think it might have been an Ann Landers or something, but the bottom line message was, you'll be the best mother you can if you're the happiest. So make the choice that makes you the happiest. And my mom stayed home, but she ran everything. She was the president of everything. So she was never home.
She was talking with my younger daughter, she said, I didn't think anybody cared what her mother said about. But you know what? She really cares.
She really does.
Yes, she does.
My sister, very
She likes to put a big facade on that she doesn't
like
care.
I'm tough.
She cares. And when you say something to her that she, rubs her the wrong way, she may not say it to you. And this is kind of the point of the book, is that a lot of times something bothers us and we keep it inside, or we slam the phone down, or we vent for a minute, and we never really say to the person, like say to our mother, well, I know you didn't mean anything by that comment, but when you said, that I should, maybe I should wear a different dress, or that I should put the dishes away that are out, or whatever, that it makes me feel badly. And so instead of, because it's hard to confront somebody about things like that.
Well, or how about the flip of that, which is, I know you really did mean what you said. I still can't believe you said it. that mother, the moms are the truth tellers. Who's going to tell it to me other than her, right? I mean, that's really, who's going to tell
And
me?
that's the absolute truth.
That was such a cogent line.
Yeah, that's good.
And, my mom will often say things to my sister that I wish I had the nerve to say to her, because I know they're true, and yet she doesn't want to hear them, because she doesn't want to hear it, right? You don't want to hear about your deficiencies or things you could be doing differently. So, yeah, it's definitely, I think it's something that's very...
And you can almost feel it, like when I live an hour from my mom, and so when we're trying to get to her house for something and we're running late, I have that feeling like, oh my God, I'm gonna get in trouble. But it's a real feeling, and my husband will call it, we're on Judy time, my mother's name is Judy, gotta get there, But it's just like that panicked feeling of being a child again and getting oh, I'm late,
And as I listen to everyone talk, it seems like there's this universal struggle that's somewhere inside of each one of us, that where we want that balance to be, and then how to get to that point.
And there's a huge amount of pressure on women today to do everything so well.
Right.
And we hold ourselves to these higher standards. Sometimes, and our moms aren't holding us to these standards. These are sort of self-imposed or imposed by society, or I don't know where they come from. But there's a sense that you have to do it all and do it really well. And so when someone, just like our mothers, will offer to help or say, why don't you just take some time for yourself, and then we're all, we jump to our defenses and say, what do you mean? Right, I can do it, and I don't need time to myself. Everything's under control. And this book is not about my mother. This book is about many, many mothers, and lots of mothers do that. And people read that and they think, oh my gosh, I had the same thing happen. And, it's relatable. And I think even in the stories that we have in there, that there are things you read and hopefully you see yourself in it. And most importantly, I think the advice is really good and practical. And I've used some of this, and I think it's things that you can easily do. I mean, just trying to view your mother as a peer, and getting her oral history, learning about her before she was a mom, taking a night to just go out to dinner with your mom. We had one woman who worked all the time, and she said, I don't have time for my mom, I'm busy, I have kids. And the mom said, I just want to go out to dinner with you. Can't you just spare one night after you tuck the kids into bed to go out to dinner? It's the simple things like that. So I think, I know, my mom didn't realize that it had a lot of impact and people were interested. I always did. I thought this book needed to be written a long time ago. So thank you so much. I hope this discussion has been interesting to all of you. And I hope that you can go to our website, which is www.makingupwithmom.com, and you can get lots of details on the book and see excerpts and find out how to order it and that sort of thing. So thanks.